Snap-on is a $4.7 billion company with no stores and no interest in building one. Every tool is delivered by a salesman who parks outside your workplace on the same day every week. That system has outlasted every retail tool brand in America. Joseph Johnson was a plant manager at a Milwaukee company called Blackhawk Manufacturing. He spent his working days surrounded by mechanics and their tools. He understood the problem from the inside. 30 bolt sizes meant 30 wrenches. 40 meant 40. The canvas roll never got lighter. The solution was already visible to anyone willing to look at it directly. One handle, multiple sockets that attach and detach in seconds. 5 handles doing the work of 50 wrenches. Johnson and his colleague William Seidemann left Blackhawk and spent their weekends in 1919 and early 1920 building prototypes by hand. Crude bending jigs, pure muscle, 2 sample sets, 5 handles and 10 sockets that snapped onto the handles interchangeably. The sockets clicked into place. They held firm under torque. They released cleanly when the mechanic pushed the button. The mechanism was so simple and so obvious that it was difficult to understand why nobody had built it before. The company slogan was, "5, do the work of 50." In 1919, every wrench in every mechanic's shop was one piece of steel. One handle, one socket, one size. A professional mechanic working on automobiles in 1919 carried a canvas roll with 30 or 40 individual wrenches. Every size a separate tool. Every bolt a different wrench. The roll was heavy. The system was inefficient. The automobile was becoming the dominant consumer product in America, and the men who fixed them were working with tools designed for a different era. On April 21, 1920, Johnson and Seidemann incorporated the Snap-on Wrench Company at 134 Reed Street in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Capital stock was $25,000. The entire product line was 5 drive handles and 10 sockets. The company name described the mechanism. The sockets snapped on. Johnson understood something that no other tool manufacturer in America had fully grasped. A mechanic will not buy a new kind of tool from a catalog. A mechanic has to hold it. He has to feel the socket click onto the drive handle. He has to hear the snap, feel the lock, put a wrench on a bolt, and pull. The sale happens in the mechanic's hand, not on a printed page. Johnson and Seidemann did not open a showroom. They did not place advertisements in trade magazines. They hired salesmen. They gave the salesmen tools. They sent the salesmen into garages and repair shops and dealerships across the Midwest. And they told them to do one thing. When presenting to mechanics, the salesmen were instructed to lay the sockets out on a piece of clean green felt, the same way a surgeon might arrange surgical instruments before an operation. The presentation was not accidental. It was designed to make a set of steel sockets feel like precision instruments, which is exactly what they were. The mechanic looked down at the tools laid out on green felt and understood, before anyone said a word, that he was looking at something serious. The demonstration was the sale. The sale was the demonstration. By December of 1920, 20 cities had branch offices. By 1925, 17 branches were operating, and a sales force of 165 men were walking into shops across the country with Snap-on tools and green felt. The growth was not driven by advertising or distribution deals or retail partnerships. The growth was driven by one man handing a tool to another man, and the second man realizing that 5 tools just replaced 50. In 1923, Johnson filed the company's first patent for the number 6 ratchet, an interchangeable ratchet adapter he designed himself. The same year, the company published its first product catalog. By 1927, the first international branch opened in Montreal. The company that had started with 2 men bending metal by hand on weekends was already crossing borders 7 years after incorporation. In 1929, Snap-on purchased an 11-acre site on the outskirts of Kenosha, Wisconsin, to centralize manufacturing. In 1930, The headquarters moved from Milwaukee to Kenosha, where it has remained ever since. The Depression hit. The company contracted. It survived by doing what every durable manufacturer does during hard times. It held on. It kept the salesmen on the road. It kept the tools in front of the mechanics who still needed them, even when they had less money to spend. Then the war started. Military contracts consumed the manufacturing capacity. Tool shortages hit the civilian market. The company's leadership made a decision that would define Snap-on's relationship with its sales force for the next 80 years. They released available tool stock to the salesmen even when supply was limited, so that the salesmen could maintain their relationships with civilian customers during the war years. The logic was simple. The war would end. The mechanics would still be there. The salesman who kept showing up during the shortages would be the first man they bought from when production resumed. After the war, a man named Newton Tarbell transformed the system. The company had advertised for a military officer to organize and develop a larger post-war sales force. Tarbell was hired. He looked at the existing model and pushed it further. He created permanent routes, assigned territories, regular weekly visits. The salesman did not cold call. He built a relationship. He showed up every Tuesday or every Thursday, same time, same parking spot outside the shop. The mechanics knew he was coming the way they knew the mail carrier was coming. The walk-in van arrived in the late 1940s and into the 1950s. Each van was a mobile tool store. Shelves of wrenches, ratchets, sockets, screwdrivers, pliers, torque wrenches, specialty tools, diagnostic equipment. The driver parked outside the shop. The mechanics walked to the van, stepped inside, and browsed. They held tools. They tested ratchets. They pulled drawers open on display cabinets. The experience was retail. The location was the customer's own workplace. The store came to the mechanic. The mechanic never left the job. Each Snap-on dealer carried between $50,000 and $200,000 of inventory. He visited the same shops on the same day every week. He knew the mechanics by name. He knew what tools they already owned. He knew which ones were wearing out. In 1965, Snap-on opened its first branch in the United Kingdom. The same year, a patent was awarded after years of legal dispute. It was the flank drive design. A conventional socket grips a hex bolt at the 6 corners. Under heavy torque, the force concentrates at those corners and rounds them off. The flank drive socket grips the bolt on the flat surfaces between the corners. The force spreads across a wider surface. The bolt does not round. The socket does not slip. The mechanic pulls harder, and the tool holds. For 2 decades, only Snap-on made it. Sales grew from $66 million in 1969 to $373 million in 1979. Profits grew from $6 million to $42 million in the same decade. In 1978, Snap-on stock was listed on the New York Stock Exchange. The company that started with $25,000 in capital and 10 sockets was now a publicly traded corporation. It still sold its tools the same way it had sold them in 1920. One man, face to face, putting the tool in the customer's hand. In 1990, the system formalized into a franchise model. Snap-on became the first mobile tool company to offer franchise ownership. The dealer buys a franchise, buys a van, buys initial inventory, and operates as an independent business on an assigned list of calls. The brand provides the tools, the credit systems, the training, and the reputation. The franchisee provides the relationship, the route, the weekly presence outside the shop door. Today, roughly 3,000 Snap-on franchise vans operate across the United States alone. No other tool company in the world sells this way at this scale. In the 1980s, Snap-on became the sole supplier of tools to NASA for the Space Shuttle program. The selection was not sentimental. NASA does not choose tools based on brand loyalty or marketing. NASA chooses tools based on failure rates, material specifications, and performance under conditions that have no margin for error. A tool failure in orbit is not an inconvenience. It is a potential catastrophe. Snap-on met the standard. The tools went to space. Joseph Johnson died on October 15, 1986, at the age of 92. He lived long enough to see his company reach $1 billion in annual sales. He lived long enough to see the van network grow to thousands of routes. He lived long enough to see the tools go to NASA. He lived long enough to see the brand become something more than a tool company, something closer to an institution, a word that mechanics use not to describe a product but to describe a standard. Today, Snap-on generates $4.7 billion in annual revenue, 13,000 employees, more than 130 countries, more than 3,100 patents, 15 manufacturing facilities in the United States, wrenches forged in Tennessee, ratchets manufactured in Milwaukee, power tools from North Carolina, tool storage built in Iowa. The company that Johnson and Seidemann incorporated in 1920 with $25,000 at 134 Reed Street in Milwaukee is the same company in the same state doing the same thing for the same customer 105 years later, while Craftsman was sold by Sears for $900 million. While Porter Cable changed hands so many times, the brand became a label on tools made by whoever currently held the rights. While Milwaukee was acquired by a Hong Kong conglomerate, while Stanley merged with Black & Decker and became a corporation that swallows other brands whole, Snap-on remained Snap-on. Same headquarters, same state, same van, same green felt. Johnson and Seidemann built 2 sample sets by hand on weekends in 1919 and 1920. 5 handles, 10 sockets. They laid them out on green felt and let the mechanic hold them. The mechanic understood immediately. The sale happened in his hand. 105 years later, the van still parks outside the shop on the same day every week. The salesman still puts the tool in the mechanic's hand. The mechanic still understands immediately. That is the entire strategy. That has always been the entire strategy. The sale happens in the mechanic's hand, not on a printed page. It always did. It still does.